Phew, that took a while. Okay.
We're warming up, and we already had a disconnection before we
I
started.
know, right? Just in studio. What the heck? What the heck, internet?
Manually resharing the feed, so if you are watching right now, know that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so let's get to the YouTube and the Facebook.
Resharing.
Yeah, so give us a moment. We just give a bit of time to warm up and let people join the stream. So this first part's always pretty boring. Sorry about that. Especially if you're watching in the future.
Okay. Feed is running. That's strange.
But
Don't reshare. It's live chat overview and more like this. Reshares here in the bottom.
oh,
They changed
interface
format.
change.
Ooh. I wonder if that's behind the frustrations we've been having.
No, that's just Facebook being naturally frustrating on its own for completely unrelated reasons.
Okay, reshares. Manual reshares done.
Yep.
Feed is running. Reference pages are loaded. Wow, June's almost ending already.
Yep. So ends Pride Month. Okay.
Never noted the free moment.
I'm just amusing myself.
Hey, Andre.
Hello, Andre. It's not entirely weird. A lot of people do weird, do non-work things at work.
Good thing you're not really doing that.
Mm.
Good thing you're focused on work, and this is just background noise.
Mm.
Before we start, special thanks to B-Side. Side B. Oh my god, what was the right word? Names! But if you look at the back,
On the B side, yo.
there's a flag.
Side B Philippines.
There's a flag. There's a flag for moi.
Yeah. So we finally have a bisexual flag in our collection of queer flags. Officially, it is the biggest flag in this house.
Yes.
It's crazy big.
And I would stand up and show how big it is, but that would reveal what I'm wearing down below.
Or you could just super hold it in front. It could cover everything you're wearing.
Yeah, but to get there, I'll have to like squat so they don't see what I'm wearing.
That is true. That is true. Because I do not want you appearing on camera that way.
See, now it's playing in my head.
Tell me why.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We better get started. We'll start in 2 minutes. But while waiting for our official start, which is in 2 minutes, crazy haze out in the windows.
Yes.
If you base it on the website I was referencing on the air quality, it was supposedly bad even over the weekend.
Mm.
So that sort of makes me wonder: did you notice any haze over the weekend?
No, not really. And I stepped out, but then again, it also kind of rained in the middle, so
Hmm.
maybe that like
Wasn't that noticeable?
diffused some of it. Yeah,
And I'm a bit surprised that there hasn't been much media about it. I
I know,
tried looking
right?
online if there's any
I
news.
that's why it hasn't really blipped, and it really felt like a really is something going on, but it did feel like something was going on.
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, he's on lunch. Okay, good job, Andrew.
1 minute and we start. Other than the haze, the heat. Oh, the heat was such a sticky heat today.
Isn't it great that it's already the rainy season? So, if there are new people watching, of course, for if you're unfamiliar with Baduy Pride, it's a live stream discussion, but we can't see who's watching. So we appreciate if you leave comments, interact with the stream, and we'll try to feature or mention stuff you mention as we
Mm-hmm.
talk about. What we're talking about today, which is quite apparent.
All right, 9:20. Let's start with the intro. We'll be right back after this brief intro.
Rocky's not ready. So professional. Okay, wait. Okay.
Oh yeah! Really right.
Hello, everyone. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a Monday, and Mondays tend to be our board game days. So today's topic, as you can already see, is Azul.
Yay, Azul! Azul was designed by Michael Kiesling with art by Philip Guerin and Chris Williams, which is funny to think because, like, I guess the art is really limited to the designs and the
Mhm.
tiles, which is still art. It's just interesting that it there's a separate art credit for it. Okay, so
The game is an abstract strategy game that looks like a puzzle and plays in a much more aggressive way than most people realize at first glance. In the game, players take turns picking tiles from a selection of options and try to build their display. By building their display correctly and strategically, they score more points. And if they are wicked enough, they can make sure to leave other tiles for others that will in a way that causes them penalties.
yes, this is often this is often the case. Um, Funnily enough, though, I feel like this has become my favorite gateway game
Mhm.
when we are introducing the board games to new people. Before it used to be Splendor, and Splendor, don't get me wrong, it's still a good game. It still has a solid punch, but I think there's something about Azul that really ties things all together, and it's because it is both a nice game
Mhm.
but then also a super memorable one, probably because of the components, and we'll get to that more in a bit.
For a game that has over 30 nominations and awards, the game is um, an amazing game that does not rely too much on words.
Oh yes,
People who don't actually read so much will not find themselves struggling to play this game because the game does not rely on words. It uses a good sense of iconography in explaining things. And while the first few games might be learning games just to get the hang of how things work, once you get the basics down, you will find it hard to stop playing this game.
yeah. I think the most complicated thing about the game is the scoring,
Mhm.
probably more than anything else. The rest of it, the actual gameplay, it's very easy to pick up, and then and the resulting board at the end, the board state at the end is beautiful.
In Azul, you play tile laying artists, and as you can see here in the back of the board, the game is broken down to three steps. On the first step, from these round factories, you collect a tile of your choosing, causing all of the others to fall into a general area.
Well, you choose a tile, all tiles of a certain color.
Yeah. That tile is then placed onto your board depending on which row you want it to fill up. You cannot fill up rows that already have a tile, a waiting tile with a different color. Then When those are completed, those are later brought into your display at the end of that playing round. And those that are brought into display then allow you to score points depending on how many other tiles they're touching that moment. Once the end of the game is reached, whether um, certain end game conditions are met, then the final scoring happens, which can include points gained because of the sets you've created. Let's open the box and check out the contents.
Yeah. So, in terms of gameplay, it's everybody. Okay, let me fish this up. Gets a player board, and these are double-sided boards where one side is not colored, the other is, and this is basically the pattern that you're going to follow in terms of your tile placement. It has a score track on top for each player, and again, it's like this is like you'll spend most of the teach the first game that you play getting people used to the scoring.
Mhm. As you can see, the board game does come with an insert. It includes 4 black wooden cubes that are used as scoring trackers, a single special tile that is to represent the first player marker, a bag with all the tiles inside. I'll let you hold that. And cardboard factories. Admittedly, the factories are the cheapest looking thing in this entire set, but considering they basically serve as containers and you use a number of factories depending on the number of players, I don't mind that they're the cheapest thing in the
They are
set.
tile coasters.
But yes, if you look carefully, there's a spot for that single tile if you choose to put it there, and submerged areas to keep the other pieces. We don't do that though.
We do the pieces, just not the one player token, and then we keep all the tiles in the bag. So if you can already like here, so you got plastic tiles, and if you've ever earned a mahjong set,
You put them here.
typically
It's
used
visible.
of the same material, it has the same sound feel to it, and that is part of the fun. Just playing with them inside the bag.
Tiles come in different distinct colors and patterns, and by getting enough of a set, in order to complete a row, as you can see here, there are a number of blank spaces for each row. The topmost row can be completed with just one, the lowest row can be completed with 5. By completing a row correctly, you then move in one of that tiles of that color you've prepared in order to fill up the board, eventually filling it up in something that looks like this.
Now, it's important to remember that there are specific scoring criteria that get involved. So the main end game trigger is if someone completes a row, then the game will end.
hmm
Given that each row is 5 tiles and the first row is completed with just a single tile, technically the game can end in 5 rounds.
hmm
And it's painful when the game ends in 5 rounds because you haven't had a lot of time to maneuver and to score. But you just got to remember, oh my god, you can end the game in 5 rounds. So it's really not a lot of time to play around, and you really have to be as efficient as possible as you go through the game. Um, it's a lot easier. So this is the standard board, which is a lot easier because then you get to follow the pattern, and it's the principle behind the pattern of tiles is Sudoku, which is basically per row and column, each tile will appear once. So
Mhm.
you're not going to repeat. Um, More advanced players can play with the other side of the board where you're free to put them wherever you want, but then you're just going to have to make sure that the placements are legal.
Mhm.
There is no shame in forever playing with the basic board. It is still a challenging game, even with that.
So part of the fun is just handling the tiles. There's a very beautiful tactile quality to holding these tiles, to feeling their weight, to hearing those clackety clack noises.
And it's super. They're completely smooth, so there is no ribbing, embossing, etching on it. You cannot guess the tile color by holding it, um, and that works out fine. It works out quite fine.
As far as the scoring mechanic is concerned, um, this is where it gets tricky.
Mm-mm.
For every location wherein you've placed a tile that round, so let's say we've placed the black tile here. then that would score you a point. But for every succeeding tile placements, let's say we got this blue one and we place it here, it still only scores you 1 point unless there were tiles touching it in the horizontal or vertical path. So if you are able to connect, for example, a tile to a group of already existing tiles, um, this is going to be a bit tricky to demonstrate, but let's say there is a column of these three,
Okay. Ooh,
and then
so
we are
brave.
able to play this here, then this gives me 2 points, one for the tile and one for the one touching it. But then if, let's say, this letter L shape was already present, and you were able, oh no, that would have been legal. There. And then you were able to play another tile in, then you get points based on the things touching it, which can make for very good strategic points if you are smart enough to find a way to do it.
So it's definitely important to not just fill up rows quickly, but also figure out which rows you're
Mhm.
completing. Because the more tiles that are touching during scoring increases the points you will earn in that round. And you could theoretically argue, but in the end, you'll earn the same amount of points once all the tiles are
Mhm.
in. But again, the game can end in 5 rounds. So you may not have the time to maneuver everything. So you
Mhm.
want to maximize your potential points
In
every round.
addition, at the basic level where you follow this pattern, you are at least certain that there is a location for each color. But if you are playing with the variant side and you are making your own pattern, it is possible to lock yourself up in a way that certain areas are suddenly, oh, I can't put anything there because I blocked myself out. So it's a nice tricky element. Beyond that main scoring mechanic, you get bonus points. You get 2 extra points for every completed row.
You'll only complete one. Well, you'll complete a minimum of one.
Yeah. You'll get 7 extra points for every completed column.
That's what you should really gun for.
And then you get 10 extra points if you were able to put 5 of one color in your set. So as you can see here, a maximum of 5 of a color is expected if you ever complete the puzzle.
Yep. Because Sudoku style, there it's a 5 by 5 grid where there is a specific place for each tile in each row and column.
Now, part of the challenge is when you collect tiles, you are forced to collect all the matching tiles of a specific color. When it's in a factory, and factories are these round things, they tend to have 4 tiles on them. So when, let's say that is your 4, if I were, for example, to get from this factory, I want it to be more visible. Yeah, bah. So let's say I wanted to get from this factory and I got this blue piece, then all these 3 go into the common area.
In the middle of the factory
But
ring.
as the game progresses, this common area starts to grow in what it contains. And if you choose to get from the common area, you must get all the tiles in that common area of that color. If you happen to be the first one to get from it, then you are forced to get the not this one.
Wrong bag.
The first player token, which while it's good because it means you're the first player
In the next round.
it's bad because the first player token will never fit the board, which means this comes into play.
Yeah, there's a penalty track at the bottom which represents tiles you break. In the caveat concept of the game where you are all building mosaics with tiles. So it's an advantage you'll have to balance out. Like, will you really want to grab? Are the tiles in the middle that important that
Mhm.
you must grab it now at the risk of getting at least one penalty point? But at least you'll be first next round. Or do you not care? Wait for someone else to get the first round and hope that the colors you're aiming for are useful.
Worse, other players maneuver it in a way that you have too many of the color you wanted. Or, if they are really cruel, they maneuver it to the point that you have no choice but to get the color that you cannot use.
This is my objective half the time.
For every tile that you are unable to use, they fill up a slot, and you'll notice the ascending number
Of
of penalty
penalties.
points that you will get for every tile that you cannot apply to the piece. Realize you can lock yourself out in the later parts of the game because as you fill in the board with a specific color, that makes those rows illegal as places where you could put that color again.
Because you can't repeat. So it's definitely a tricky thing, and because you have a bunch of people also gathering tiles, different colors, then there's a bit of an economy to the game because you have a fixed number of tiles in the bag,
Mhm.
and like if everybody is completing the dark blue tiles at the beginning, then it will reach a point that there aren't a lot of blue tiles to go around, and you have to
Yes.
wait for the tiles to reshuffle before you have a chance of completing. So that's part of the challenge of the game.
So that in a nutshell is the entirety of Azul. The game plays from 2 to 4 players. We have found this game to be spectacular regardless of the number of players. Having 4 players doesn't feel too slow.
Mhm.
Having 2 players doesn't feel too easy. The mechanic of having the factories refilled with the tiles that weren't used later on gives this nice level of strategy. If you are aware of what tiles have been used up, then you can sort of plan what will come out. Um,
And then the number of factories active change with the number of players. So if you have fewer players, there are fewer factories. So you'll only have a small subset of the tiles available to you at any one time, which is sort of a proxy for like if there were a lot of people playing and stuff. And seeing Noah loves the box. So yes, Azul is also one of those games that I always remember the first player selection mechanic, and I keep joking about I want to make a website or a Google sheet
mhm.
that documents all the different quirky first player rules. So in Azul, because of its premise about mosaic building, the first player is the last person to have visited Portugal, which we've yet to find someone who has been to Portugal. So we just choose who has been to the closest country, which may still be in Asia. Of course, this is pre-pandemic thinking.
It does make me wonder though, people in Portugal will always complain who will
Who
be
will be
the
the
first
first
player.
player? And then the other quirky thing is that because we like to play music when we play board games, it's hard to figure out what music fits for this. If you look for like classical Portuguese music, you get a lot of guitar stuff, which kind of overlaps with Spanish guitar, but it's
Yes.
different. And I don't know if people have recommendations for like your preferred Azul soundtrack. We would love to hear it.
Now, the game has various expansions. In terms of the standalone expansions that basically add a different changer element to the game, you have Azul Stained Glass of Sintra and Azul Summer Pavilion. Stained Glass of Sintra is one of the most beautiful looking games we've seen.
Mm.
It is also one of the more um, um, strategic when it comes to playing the game. Whereas here, the tiles are more opaque and the building is a bit more abstract. In Stained Glass of Sintra, you have a much more interesting collection of pieces to use that are slightly translucent.
Yes,
Hence the
so
stained glass name.
it suffers from that classic. They look like candy, so it is definitely one of the yummier games. We still don't own it because, admittedly, Azul on its own is such a solid game
Mhm.
that they haven't really created like true expansions for it. Because what else can you add to this gameplay? So instead, the designers have come up with several re-implementations that change the shapes, that change the premise a bit, and add some slight tweaks to the rules, but the base Azul remains pretty solid. And I feel like also any Azul is pretty solid, depending on what is more your feel. You can't go wrong with the base game, but then now we dug up some research on what's different about the others because admittedly we have not found the heart to buy the other
Mhm.
versions. Okay.
Azul Summer Pavilion is the other expansion. It uses more diamond shaped tiles and it uses this almost flower like pattern in terms of what you're building. For Filipinos, it might remind you of paroles.
Mm.
It's meant to be the simpler version of the game, allowing less strategy and less hurting each other. Uses a simpler mechanic in terms of comparing the two. So I guess you could say if Azul, the base game, is a nice middle ground, you have Sintra and Summer Pavilion as different portions of the spectrum if you want to try the game. There are many other smaller expansions from Joker tiles to mini goals to certain specific tiles. We haven't really found those yet. There's a time I almost found a chance to get the Joker tiles, but that was expensive. And all in all, Azul is again a very highly recommended game with over 30 nominations and awards under its belt. This is not a game that you will regret getting if you get a chance to it. In our experience, even if we are huge fans of heavier Euro games, we still love playing this. We haven't found ourselves tired of this game.
Mm.
We love the fact that you can set it up and play 2 3 sessions of this, and the game quickly goes by, and yet it never feels like you're just groaning through the session.
And it's faster to play and clean up Azul versus Splendor, which seems like a minor caveat, but it's because since at the end of every round when you place tiles into your mosaic, then you kind of just dump them all in the box, and then at the end you can just gather everything back into the bag. Whereas Splendor, it is sorting the cards, putting them back. Hello! We have another internet issue. I was saying it's a lot easier to reset Azul to start the next round versus Splendor. Which
Mm.
if you're gunning for playing as many games as possible in a single game night, which we have done at times, Azul will help you clock them up really quickly, and it's still all like very relaxing. Okay, so Mitch was asking what is better amongst the Azul versions. It really depends on you and the flavor you're looking for. And so if but like so they the way the designers explain it, that Azul is the middle of the road, and then Summer Pavilion was easier, and then was this the stained glass of Sintra is a bit more complex but not excessively so.
Yes.
So either way, I think after all this though, I think we may consider like getting stained glass eventually.
Just because it's pretty.
Yeah, yeah. And then we'll try not to eat them.
But then again, given how the board game community is now, I think we should wait. Because they might have an Azul Collector's Edition. We'll have all three.
But I don't know. That seems
Plus
weird.
a fourth version of Azul.
That seems weird. Because the games don't interact. The tile pieces are different shapes.
Yeah, but it's a nice collection of family games already under one title. So it's only a matter of time.
Noel says the titles sound like RPG games. Well, that's true. I mean, like a lot of games have that feel because of, especially with something with a very foreign theming to it. I mean, at least foreign for us. Again, we now want to find out how people playing Azul in Portugal figure out how to start the game.
Games can go as quick as 30 minutes, can last a bit longer depending on how paralyzed your players can get. But one of the big pros about this game is even if you've been having a bad moment, let's say, someone grabbed all the colors you wanted, someone grabbed all the colors you wanted. Since a round resets quickly and you have the chance to snag that first player token if you can, then it doesn't feel like you're having a crappy game for the entire session. Whereas in other games like Splendor, for example, you can find yourself trapped where someone hoards all of one color.
His
Or-
name is Toby.
I do not do
You
that.
you hoard a color very often.
Do not do that.
You totally hoard colors.
I do not do that. I hoard 2 colors. So, but yes, the game resets very quickly, so it allows you to actually recover from bad sessions real fast and feel awesome about it very quickly. We've even had many instances where first time players find themselves locking into the mechanics so well that they actually win, despite us not downplaying our love for the game.
Oh, we never downplay.
Mhm.
We love you as friends, and if we will game, we will do our darndest to beat you because it's what you deserve. So strategy. So I think that which is like relates to Mitch's question about like is it always like getting bonus points and stuff. So I think that my tip number one is at the beginning of the round, not just the game but the round when the factories have been set up. Take a good lay of the land and think about the quantity of pieces available.
Mhm.
You really have to map out like if it's do you have enough pieces to make the black tiles your five in a row, or should you just focus on small wins and just score the one and two tile things?
It's always an opportunity to grab the largest number of the same color if they are present. So if you have a factory with all four one color, grab it because that means you can already complete a four or a five row within that round. However, it also pays to pay attention to what's already in play. Because as you noticed, as players play tiles that complete rows, one of those always stays on their board, which effectively reduces the number of tiles available for for that color, for all succeeding rounds. It is not unheard of to find yourself annoyed that the colors you need don't show up anymore in the later rounds.
Think about your lines. Obviously, columns are a bit more important because they score more. Trying to get all of one color is such a good bonus to get 10 points, but requires some very long term planning.
Mm.
So don't just get excited with filling the one and two tile rows early and at random because it won't get you enough points in the long run. So think about that strategy, and that's why like Mitch was like kind of asking about. Yes, it is at best it is a good idea to think about what patterns you're trying to fulfill, what lines you are creating. Do you have enough to collect the colors? That's important pieces to consider when you're placing your tiles out. And then on the flip side, though, don't get too married to those ideas in the sense that, no, 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 no. For this third row, I'm super going to hold out. I'm only going to place the one color that's adjacent to my other tiles
Mhm.
because you might lock yourself out on the flip side. Whether it means that you don't complete as many rows as other players do in the round, or the tile just isn't available. So why wait? And it's tricky to determine when to do one or the other. But you gotta keep moving forward.
Mhm. Also, take note of the availability of a color in a round. You might want to complete a row as soon as you can to make sure you don't get locked out later on. But if you notice that in the factories there's many single tiles of that color, which is what you needed to complete the row, then maybe you can delay yourself from completing it to grab the others that other people might be gunning for. It's a very common tactic in this game that if you see someone, let's say, wanting to complete the red row, then they'll try to target the red tiles, which means it doubly hurts them if you grab the red tiles.
His name is Toby.
No,
Okay, it's
strategy.
me too. um, and then especially in mid to late game, pay attention to everyone's boards. I mean, you can totally play Azul as a simultaneous solitaire game that you are all playing, but really, for long term strategy and for a whole new layer of fun, pay attention to everyone's board states and figure out what they're going for, or at the very least, remember what they can't do. If you see that he has, the other player has tiles waiting on the four and the five, which
Mm.
happens a lot, you have to bank them and probably take two rounds to finish them. That locks them in. And if the available tiles in the middle are of a color that is not that he has already completed in his available rows, you could force penalty points at the end if things go your way by
Yes.
taking the other colors and building other things.
And I guess my last strategy that I'll share is count. Count the tiles because every turn a person has to get something. And when they get something, it will always be all of one color. So if you look at the general area, you will be able to actually count how many rounds that general area will be touched. And it sort of allows you to plan out, okay, so if they all get that in the 2 rounds I have, in my last second round, I'll realize I'll be stuck with 3 possible colors. So that can already inform you and plan how your moves will be to make sure you don't get stuck with a terrible moment.
Yeah, I mean like that, and that's the other thing and that's definitely a clear point to pay attention if it's time to change your track because you are facing the same limitations on your board as if you have tiles that are parked, and you got to make sure that especially as the general area has sprawled out, someone has taken the first player token, so it's free for all. Then you start looking at crap. I don't want the look. Figure out what the worst combination is for you. Make sure, and the only way to make sure you don't get it is to steer the tiles so that other players who can get them as a legal move will choose to do so, so that when it comes back to your round, you're okay.
Or do what Rocky does and recommend to the other players, oh, you can get that one, no?
This is part of the strategy.
See, you used to deny it. Haha!
It's just social nudging at the table.
Now you can get that. That completes it immediately, and I'm like, oh,
I'm just
Rocky is doing
sharing strategy that maybe prevents me from getting 3 penalty points and gives them to Toby.
it. And it doesn't help that when we play, Rocky always acts before me. In terms of the player order,
It's,
in
you
the,
know,
on the rotation of the table.
yeah. We try not to sit together, but then like in a 3-player game, I don't know, it's just like
But yeah, so that was Azul. It took us actually longer to explain it than it would have been to play it, if it were a 2-player game, because we'd be playing through this real fast. And
with
I
minor muted exclamations.
knew it. But we definitely recommend this game. So you find this better than Splendor?
I like this. I don't necessarily think it's better,
Mhm.
but I like this more than Splendor.
I think it's more fulfilling because of the click clack sounds when you use the
Yes,
tiles.
and then the placement at the end when you make your little mosaic,
And
it's
then
like,
when you collect them and put them in the bag, so there's that feel of mahjong tiles being gathered.
yeah.
I still prefer Splendor over this only because I like how Splendor sort of opens up opportunities to different tactics, despite the fact that there is a broken tactic that can be played using it. But yeah, we highly recommend Azul. We suggest you check it out. We're not aware of official digital versions.
Sadly, not yet.
But I think there are people who have made versions of this in Tabletopia and other options, so you might want to check those out. But yeah, that's all we have for this episode. We hope you had fun, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
Just quick run through the comments before we go. Mitch had very nice things to say that she affirms that yes, it's true. They play normal, be it newbie or experienced. They're nice in explaining the rules to newbie and those who forgot, like me, who is tamad in reading the rules. And if you get locked out, bida pang asar, which is true though. It's like if you have only sucky moves left, get the move that is suckiest for others, and then then it's like see they're very helpful. But yeah, Azul, oh my god, we super. I think we haven't had as many chances to play with new friends, but then every time it's a newbie game night, I am most likely going to bring out Azul.
Yeah.
Noel, we would love to play this with you. Totally. And I think you will definitely like this one.
You can even set it down on the Afghan thing, and then you put it on top.
But then that might mute the clickety clack clack.
No,
I want
those
it
still
louder.
click clack when they hit each other. But now there's a nice, textured table to keep the boards from sliding. Because if ever there's a negative thing to say about Azul, the player boards could have been more interesting.
I mean, by now, in this age of everybody is doing double layered player boards, this is a game that could have benefited from a double layer player board.
But it was still better than Terraforming Mars.
That's true, because the board is thick
compared
to the Terraforming Mars one, which feels like the end of a pad of pad paper, and it's not even a branded pad paper. It's like the National Bookstore pad paper.
But lacking the thickness, it's very easy to nudge the score
Yeah.
and or your tiles suddenly all dance when you move one in. So yeah. it could have had a little bit of love in that department.
But that score tracker. That score tracker is the biggest like problem. It sticks to arms. It gets dislodged very quickly. So be careful about that. And you're gonna
it's
be scoring
heavy.
mid game. Because of the tiles. It's such beautiful
100 tiles. It's 100 tiles.
Should use the table mantle. Oh my god. It needs to be hexagonal.
I'll tell you now, Noel. No need for the table mantle. We love you, but no need because
This is our
Um,
work table also.
and it will stress Rocky out that now when things spill, they'll stain the covering, and then you'll add them to the
Ooh.
laundry. So no,
it's
no.
hard to wash knits.
No table mantle, please.
That will stress me out. Okay.
It's
okay.
the reason also I don't wear my sweaters anymore because those are stressful to launder as well.
Wow, you make me sound like a Monica.
No, I don't make you sound like a Monica.
Whoa! Whoa! That
For-
answers everything.
For those wondering, yes, we've been getting back into Friends because I've never seen the show, and we're seeing a lot of parallels with my life and that show. We'll have that as an episode soon, but sadly not yet this week.
Not this week. We're
We're finishing the show.
We'll finish the show. We're already in season 9. We're almost done. So we'll finish the show and then we'll do that.
So let's wrap up.
Yep. So, as always, for questions or suggestions for future episodes, fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride idea. Well, I actually pointed at it. Good job. This was today's topic. We chose it for ourselves because we wanted something colorful as we wrap up Pride Month.
Mhm.
Thanks for everyone who joined in that regard. You can follow us on Twitter, all Toby No Shade, RG Sunico.
You can also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
So feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know what you think about the game. Have you been able to play the Azul variants and which one do you like the most? And be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is
Baduy Pride.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for watching.
And watch out for that haze.